Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my run through of the NPCs in use for our Werewolf the Apocalypse 20th Anniversary Edition campaign, A Song of Tara. I've now reached the leeches, as we call them, otherwise known as the vampires. And as you can see, there are quite a few in this category. These out here on the right-hand side of the screen. This isn't even the full number of vampires in Dublin. These are simply the ones that the werewolves have heard of up to this point, and therefore the ones that the PCs know about. One of the things I do in this campaign is that I include new NPCs without introducing them in character. This is because during downtime, during hours when the characters are not on, so to say, they may still hear things from their peers or from other sources. I wish to thusly illustrate that the characters' lives also go on and also include potentially important events when they are not, so to say, on screen. However, let me begin the run through of these, and I'm going to start with this. This one isn't even really a vampire per se, but it is a symbol which is associated with them in some way that the player characters have not yet discovered. A phoenix symbol, a stylized phoenix, which is painted on walls and which has appeared in and around Temple Bar, which explains why the werewolves have only seen a few of them, since they tend to not venture into Temple Bar. However, it's called the Hand That Rocks the Cradle. An entity making an impact among the leeches. No one yet knows who this is, what this is, or what the phoenix symbol that has popped up around Temple Bar and other leech-heavy parts of Dublin means. Next up, we have this charming fellow. His name is Connor Donahue. And this is a character whom the PCs have not yet encountered, but who still plays a very important background role in the city. Connor is an ass. He's also exceptionally dangerous, and he's very, very clever. The Guru of Dublin are aware that he is a type of bloodsucker who call themselves Toreador. Apparently it's the kind of tribe name that vampires use. Why anyone would want to name themselves for a Spanish ponce in stupid breeches and silly hat is anyone's guess, but there you have it. Connor is hundreds of years old. He's outrageously good looking, has enough personal charm to make half of Dublin throw their clothes into the Liffey, male or female, and he's a stone-cold killer. No one has any idea how many he's killed personally, but we are talking many, many hundreds of people over the years. He considers himself the ruler of the city. The werewolves have heard the word Taoiseach bandied about, but this is considered an outrageous insult, since Ross O'Sullivan is the Taoiseach of the werewolves. It is the title of a war leader and the heir apparent to the throne, and the idea that the leeches would use a similar title for their leadership is reason enough in and of itself to rip them to itty-bitty bloody lumps of meat. Connor is the worst of their lot, probably in all of Ireland. He rarely leaves Temple Bar. He travels in the company of extremely heavily armed and powerful guards, some of whom are vampires, some of whom are mortal thralls. He's an exceptionally skilled warrior in his own right, on top of things, and he has proven several times that he can outrun a werewolf. quite handily, in fact. The Guru of Dublin would go to pretty extreme lengths if they saw a genuine opportunity to kill this creature once and for all. I should add an edit here that obviously Ross O'Sullivan is no longer the Taoiseach because he has moved up in life to the rank of RE. Taoiseach, for the record, is an Old Irish title, which means war leader, but it's also the title for their crown prince, and it is also incidentally the title of the vice president of the Irish Republic, or not vice president but vice prime minister, I should say. They do have a president, but that is mostly a ceremonial title. Next up we have Nev OLeary. No one speaks of this. No one. Not unless they want to die very, very, very painfully. Nev is Siobhan's older sister by almost 20 years. Siobhan was a very late arrival in the OLeary family, and Nev was already an adult when she was born. The enmity between these two sisters is beyond bloody. The mutual hatred is completely without limits. Nev is one of the single most evil entities in Dublin, even by vampire standards. She stays hidden most of the time, but she seems to be on very, very bad terms with Connor for some reason. The local guru are not sure what it is all about, but she seems to be a member of some rival group. She's been referred to in the past as a bruja, but since that word simply means someone rowdy or a troublemaker, that isn't telling the werewolves much. Siobhan is constantly on the lookout for her sister, Nev. Nev wisely does not get too close. While she is young for a vampire, she appears to have increased her power through means even other leeches wouldn't stoop to. Nev is one of the most despised supernatural creatures in the entire city, and should someone manage to find her and kill her, or even better, bring her back to Siobhan for her to kill, that person would earn some serious gratitude. And then we have Victoria Rogers. Victoria has made a splash since she arrived in Dublin, and the splash is as red as the clothes she prefers to wear. Crimson, in other words. She's aligned with Nev OLeary's group of leeches, and she's not being quiet about her presence. How she's managed to avoid getting destroyed is a source of embarrassment not only to the guru, but to most supernatural beings in the city. She's an absolute unrepentant sadist with at least 19 innocent lives on her conscience since arriving in the city, probably more. She's killed several leeches from Connor's group as well. This, in turn, has presented the guru with a one-off opportunity. If the guru somehow manage to find and kill this woman, they'll actually be doing their ancient enemy in the city a huge favour. While a few squeaky voices have suggested that the guru should leave her alone for the other leeches to deal with, this has been quickly and comprehensively rejected by a rare consensus between the Black Furies, the Geta Fenris and the Fina. Behold, the Age of Wonders has not yet fully passed for something like that to happen. But so far, no one even knows where to find her. All that is known is that she keeps a staggering amount of servile, semi-docile people under her thrall, and these thralls then do her bidding during daylight hours. She may very well be the best protected leech in Dublin, except Connor himself. Should add here, as an addendum, that, of course, the group of PCs are particularly interested in finding and killing Victoria off, after she started her career in Dublin by mercilessly taunting Connell and Fenna. Next up, we have Samuel Ellis Cartwright. Samuel, or Sam as he's convivially known to his many, many friends, is American. He hasn't been in Dublin for more than 3 years, but he's a mover and shaker in the world of business, and he's been very good at keeping a low profile amongst supernaturals. He's not aligned with either Neve or Connor, and he's allegedly an extremely pleasant kind of person with both wit and charm at his disposal, as well as about 40 heavily armed guards. He's taken up residence in Sandiford, buying an entire newly built apartment complex. It's made up of luxury apartments only, and the price is said to have been astronomical. The Garou wants to know more about him before wading in, claws at the ready. If nothing else, then how his guards rotate their shifts. And next up, we have Klaus Engelhardt. Klaus arrived in Dublin only days before the city was closed off for supernatural. He headed for Temple Bar without pause, and ever since he arrived there, the leeches have behaved like bees after someone puts their hive in an industrial cement mixer. No one knows what he said. At least, no one outside the ranks of the leeches, but he's still around, and Connor tolerates him, so apparently he's been allowed to stay. The Garou haven't picked up much of him just yet. He's Swiss, he's old, and he's apparently a seriously nasty piece of work. The only reason his presence is even known to the Garou is that he came across Winter Dancer and punched the kid's lights out. Then strangely he left without killing the young Garou off. However, there's no question that he knows what Mikhail is. The Ukrainian went Krinos and still ended up being KO'd. Before that happened, though, Klaus introduced himself and Mikhail said he recognized the leech's accent as Swiss. The last thing Winter Dancer heard before losing consciousness was Klaus saying, "Do not get in the way of the hand that rocks the cradle, Werwolf. It's in your own best interest." And next we have George Wallace. As leeches go, George is an oddball. He's not insane or anything of the sort, but he doesn't give a shit about politics, and he seems more inclined to help people than drain them dry of blood. He's one of very few bloodsuckers that Strikes from Hiding tends to not have a kill-on-sight policy against. She hasn't decided whether he gets to continue existing or if he dies like the rest. But he's been known to have helped people out of traps and horrible situations created by other leeches, and he's known to not have taken any payment or required anything in compensation for his trouble. He simply comes across as a genuinely nice person. Furthermore, Sing Sturgis says she's received messages from him suggesting that he's willing to help the Garou even against his own kind. This is something that people might look into at some point, but obviously Garou are deeply suspicious of his motives. When he's not being an enigma, he runs a tattoo studio in Temple Bar with Valerie McManus. It's called The Three Dragonflies. And I've added an edit to George because the players have actually encountered him by now and interacted with him. George has revealed himself to have been kinfolk while still alive up until his embrace around 30 years ago. His sister, Athena, is still alive in Scotland as far as he knows. He has declared himself willing to help the Garou, but also explained that his personal circumstances makes it difficult for him to earn the trust of the other leeches in the city. He does describe Valerie, his business partner, as a good kid, meaning she might be his child. Doesn't drink the blood of mortals, and says Valerie doesn't either. This, of course, means that he primarily feeds on animals, I should add, because drinking supernatural blood tends to do very, very weird and potentially very bad things to a vampire's emotional equilibrium. For example, drinking werewolf blood for a vampire is pretty much a one-way street to a serious case of frenzy. Next we have Valerie McManus, whom was mentioned a moment ago. Valerie is young, as leeches go. She's only been in Dublin for a short while, but she's made a name for herself by establishing a tattoo studio, The Three Dragonflies, in Temple Bar, where she and one of her fellow leeches, George Wallace, create art on the skin of partygoers and revelers every night. Of course, this means tattooing the blindly drunk and the terminally inebriated, but the quality of her work is so astonishing that no one seems to mind waking up with one of her pieces decorating their body. As far as anyone knows, she's aligned with Connor's group. Some Guru would probably prefer to have her tattoo them rather than killing her. Those are in the minority and very quiet about it. And I've added an edit to her saying, according to George McManus, Valerie is a good soul. Whether the Guru choose to honor this by not ripping her to pieces is another matter. And I would like to add here that obviously tattooing the blindly drunk and terminally inebriated is an unconscionable thing to do, but this is the world of darkness, and even nice people occasionally do wrong things. Next up we have this creature, Marcus Athelstan. Marcus is more beast than leech these days. He's gone off the deep end so many times that his inner beast has all but taken over. Scurrying around the outskirts of Dublin, he is nominally associated with Nev's group, but he seems to detest the city and its bright lights, and he sticks to anything, attacking anything he comes across when prowling the nights in the suburbs on the absolute edge of Dublin. He's believed to have killed at least half a dozen people over the last year. Many others report having been attacked by a man of his description. He's good at hiding, which is likely why the Guru haven't managed to find him and kill him yet. Isolated as he is, he's a prime target. Next up we have Sandy van Hartigan. Sandy, obviously, as you can see, has quite a lot of text. This was done in anticipation of my players probably wanting to interact quite significantly with Sandy, and this has turned out to be correct. Sandy is the saddest leech in Christendom. Probably outside Christendom as well, for that matter. In fact, Sandy may be the most miserable creature in Ireland, let alone the world. And even the Guru have to admit that this one got a raw deal. Sandy is Dutch. She was in Dublin to visit a close friend in 1997, and like most young tourists, she decided to check out the nightlife in the city. In this particular case, she went with her friend to the Dragon, one of the oldest LGBT nightclubs in Ireland. She had a magnificent night, danced a lot, got kissed a lot, fell passionately for an insanely handsome bloke who made her laugh and forget the fact that by and large the world was a thoroughly shitty place in which to be Sandy. In no small part thanks to the fact that Sandy's passport still said Xander. Unfortunately, the insanely handsome bloke turned out to simply be insane. 3 hours later, Sandy woke up in a very small box. The fact that she was claustrophobic and the fact that she had no idea what was going on combined with to cause an epic panic attack. And the box started to collapse. She had been buried, and now she had to dig her way out, which she did. The sorry shit who embraced her then welcomed her to the Sabbat with a laugh, but Sandy no longer found his antics funny, nor the voices that were now screaming in her head, laughing at her, taunting her, mocking her. When she found out that as a vampire she would never be able to fully transition, her world broke apart. So did her sire and all of his pack when she tricked them one very early morning in 1999. They were all gathered in the same place, and she made sure they couldn't leave before setting fire to the building. She's joined Connor's group since, but the Guru tend to leave her alone. Her taint is minimal, and the children of Gaia plead her case constantly since she's now the owner of the very nightclub where it all began for her, the Dragon, and since she's doing an enormous amount of work to help young LGBT people in Dublin. The children of Gaia consider her continued existence a trade-off worth making for the hope she helps spread to some seriously disenfranchised kids. Some, like the Black Furies, tend to disagree and want her permanently dead regardless. The saddest part of Sandy's existence is probably that she's never fully been able to accept that transitioning is now completely out of reach for her, and she self-mutilates as a result every single night. The children of Gaia would consider it a kindness if, against all rationale, someone managed to find a way of returning her to a mortal state of being so she could get some help. And I've added an edit. The Fated Six have made contact with Sandy and established a very tentative working relationship with her. This has happened with the tacit approval of Cat Markison, who insists that she has no idea whatsoever that they are speaking to this particular leech. I wish to add here that, as has been mentioned in the preamble to episode 13 of our campaign, that this particular group of role players involves straight people as well as both L's, G's, B's and T's, and that as a result everyone here is extremely open-minded. Consequently, any kind of hateful comment on Sandy, or for that matter anyone else from the LGBT spectrum, on the comments below will be deleted. Next up we have Rory Gallagher. As leeches go, Rory is remarkably hard to spot. He lacks the normal pallor that comes with undeath, and he's gregarious and convivial, right up until the point where he sinks his fangs into your neck. He's managed to fly under the radar for a long time, since apparently he's never killed anyone. He doesn't seem to feed very often, or perhaps he has an alternative means of keeping himself topped up. He seems less loathsome than most leeches, although that doesn't say much if you ask most Garou, but he does still come across as tainted. Next in line is Reinhard Färber. Reinhard is Nev OLeary's second in command, but he's a very different beast than Siobhan's sister. Whereas Nev is vicious, overtly violent, and constantly vitriolic, Reinhard is methodical, rational, calm, and completely devoid of scruples. Humanity is cattle in his mind. Garou are pests, dangerous pests possibly, but pests nonetheless, and need to be exterminated as a result. All other supernatural beings are treated with a greater or lesser degree of contempt, but he never underestimates his opponent, and he's damnably good at marshalling forces against whatever enemy Nev points out. He's not as strong as her, and he seems content to be a step behind her, but in the long run he may be more dangerous. He knows how to play the game of politics, he's got financial muscle, and he's disturbingly good at bribing people into doing his bidding. And next in line is Shinjo Oikaza. At one point, Shinjo was an exchange student somewhere back in the early 1980s. Sadly, she didn't get to experience much of Dublin. A month into her stay in the city, she was caught out in the open late at night, going home all by herself in a dark alley by something horrible. When she woke up in the sewers, the girl who had vanished. All that remained was a monster. Shinjo runs the sewers beneath Dublin South with an iron fist these days. Even the other vampires in the city are wary of her, because Shinjo, who in life by all accounts was a sweet, genteel, kindly soul, has embraced the monster within her fully and absolutely. She doesn't kill children, but she'll kill anyone else if they come across her, and her bite is sheer horror. When a vampire drinks, it's normally a painless, even blissful experience. Shinjo's bite is like having one's throat ripped open with red-hot pliers, and she revels in the pain she inflicts. And next is Maddock. Maddock is a Scot who has taken up residence in the Wicklow Mountains. He's confusing the werewolves of Dublin greatly, since he doesn't register as worm-tainted at all. There are stories of such vampires existing, but it is very rare, exceptionally rare in fact. They do apparently exist. Maddock is proof of this. However, he doesn't seek out the werewolves, or for that matter vampires or any other supernatural beings. He seems mostly at ease with himself, surrounded by the wildlife of the Wicklow Mountains. As far as the Garou can tell, he hasn't even killed animals to feed. He's a conundrum indeed. Oh, I'm a poet and I don't even know it. Next up we have this lady with the very, very long name. I'll stick to calling her Montserrat. Spanish, in case anyone couldn't tell by the name. Very Spanish, very old, very powerful, very, very dangerous. Montserrat hates her own kind passionately. The werewolves of Dublin despise her as much as any other vampire, but even Theodora leaves her alone, since frankly she kills more vampires than any other non-guru in Ireland. No one knows where her hatred comes from. No one knows any details about her past, and no one even knows who she aligns with. All that is known is that she really detests, hates, loathes, and despises vampires. And next up we have Majd al-Nasiri. Majd is Syrian, but arrived in Dublin long before the current civil war exploded in his home country. He's known to be a vampire, and the guru in Dublin have it out for him for that reason alone, but he seems to not be allied to Connor or most of the other leeches in the city. He's been very elusive. The few times someone's gotten close enough to test him for taint, the results are overpowering. He's massively worm-tainted, and a series of killings of young, handsome men that the Garda can't figure out are attributed to him by the guru. Mostly because he leaves his taint behind on those he kills, and it's pretty hard to miss for a werewolf. He doesn't hang out in Temple Bar, once again showing that he's unlikely to be allied with the rest of the city's leeches. Instead, he prowls the north side, where he can vanish very quickly indeed. Next up, we have Joseph Ahern, known as Blades. Joe is a bad kid. He's everything that can go wrong in the Irish religiously run school system, packed into one horrible package, then multiplied by a factor of 5. He's very young, and it seems that even the leeches don't expect him to live long, but that may be what's planned. He was taken by Neve's group, stuck in the ground, and forced to dig his way out, and his mind shattered as a result. Before this happened, he was already a badly messed up person, having been subjected to physical abuse both at home and in school, a complete lack of care and attention, and an utter moral void at home. When he pulled himself out of his grave, there was nothing human left in him. To him, people are nothing more than walking, talking blood bags, cattle to be fed upon and killed if he so pleases. He makes Victoria look stable, sane, and level-headed. The sooner this guy dies, the better. It'll likely make Connor quite happy as well. That's the downside of it, of course. And finally, among the leeches, we have Angus. Angus is a largely unknown quantity. He's a physical powerhouse, but too ugly to walk around amongst human beings without getting noticed. Apparently, he smells as bad as he looks. He's an enforcer of some kind in the service of the boss leech, Connor, but what his exact job description is anyone's guess. Over the last year, he's been put on the case of hunting down Victoria Rogers. This has led him to come across Guru on more than one occasion, but despite his horrible appearance and his foul smell, he has always managed to slip away and avoid further detection. He appears to have no interest whatsoever in fighting the Guru, but he is single-minded in his determination to find and kill Victoria. It's worth adding as a final addendum to the leeches that Angus may be single-minded in his determination, but he's not terribly good at it, since Victoria is still obviously very much around. Here we go. I'm going to continue with a couple of unknown entities in Dublin. Normally I add new creatures that arrive in the city and who are not immediately associated with one group or another under the unknown header. The PCs can then go there and read a little bit about them and come up with their own theories about who they may be. At the moment there are only 2, but it's very likely that there are going to be more as we go along. First up, we have Gina Masterson. Gina is causing a dreadful amount of fuss in Dublin. Well, she's not alone in doing so, but she does represent about half of the worst nightmare the Catholic Church has faced since the child molestation scandals that caused it to lose its grip on the souls of Ireland. But even for an organisation as powerful as Holy Mother Church, Gina is something to be feared. Why? Because she's stigmatic. Well, partly because she's stigmatic. That's bad enough in itself, of course. Her wounds are utterly horrible when they open. On her hands, in her back, around her forehead, on her feet, the scorch marks blasted across her body, with lashes even having struck her face. This in itself is a problem for the Catholic Church, which doesn't like to formally acknowledge the existence of stigmata to begin with, since it's such an effective and commonplace means of scamming the faithful. It's bad enough for an organization already fighting a losing battle with its silk-frocked back up against the sacristy walls, trying to fend off an ever-increasing flood of accusations and scandals, without a young, mild-mannered girl from London to come along and start bleeding all over the place. Now, the Catholic Church does not acknowledge the possibility of true stigmata in someone agnostic or atheistic, but Gina is baptized and she's attended Church of England services her entire life, so not only is she legitimately Christian, but she's out of reach for the Catholic Church. People are flocking to her, partly because of her wounds, and partly because, to the astonishment and horror of the Catholic Church and any other organized Christian organization in Ireland, she comes equipped with her own private angel. His name is Azrael, just in case anyone should be interested. Is it any wonder that she's hiding, and that even finding her and Azrael is proving impossible for the Guru at this time? They'd like to, though. People aren't supposed to bleed like she does and walk away from it, and people do not have wings. Gaia didn't create humans to fly, which is why the Wright brothers were a pair of feckin' Weaver-possessed maniacs, damn it. And as an addendum, the wings mentioned here at the end are in fact not hers. They do belong, however, to this guy, Azrael. Azrael claims to be an angel. He certainly looks the part, and he's got the Catholic Church throwing hissy fits to shake the foundations of the very heavens he claims to come from. The scary thing, apparently those wings are real. He's in Dublin somewhere, hiding out with a young woman he protects, Gina Masterson. She is suffering terribly from what appears to be stigmata, and since he is supposed to be one of the numerous birdmen claiming to be the angel of death, you'd think there'd be a more varied type of job description in heaven, but apparently they all got to deal with death in some way. Is it any wonder these guys are all a bunch of colossal downers? He says he's there to keep an eye over her until the seventh and final wound appears on her body. Since, according to canonical lore, the seventh wound of stigmata is the one made by the spear of the Roman soldier Longinus, thrust into the side of Jesus on the cross at Calvary, that particular wound is always fatal to those who experience it. The Church doesn't even want to admit if it ever happens at all, and they are utterly desperate to lay their hands on who they consider a pair of impostors and charlatans. At least they want a very firm conversation with him, probably involving admonishing finger-wagging and a stern rebuke or two. The Guru want to find him and yank his wings out at the root, then beat him to death with the soggy ends. Wings are not natural on humans, and angels, as far as the Guru are concerned, are myths. Set the 650-pound walking, talking, woofing muscle tanks. And next in line, we have what is left of Clan MacAlpin. Clan MacAlpin is bigger than the two people currently listed in this section, or at least the Guru have every reason to think that is the case. They've been told that there are a number of Black Spiral dancers in Dublin, and since they were told this by the last surviving MacAlpin in the city, as far as they knew, they now have reason to believe that he was in fact not the last surviving MacAlpin in the city and there are many others around the place that they simply haven't found yet. We have Kenneth MacAlpin first. Kenneth MacAlpin is a mystery. He's believed to have been present when Nicholas Jones, Otto O'Brien, Tricia McBride and Michael O'Shea died, but his exact role in the affair is as yet unknown. It is known that two of the unquiet dead, the sinister entities known as the First and the Last, are looking for him, and that these have stated that MacAlpin's daughter wants him dead, whatever that means. At this time, there's no clear indication of who Kenneth MacAlpin is, apart from the fact that he shares his name with the founder of the Scottish nation, and that he is possibly in league with Black Spiral dancers, or even that he may be one himself. Of course, I've added a couple of edits to this guy. The first one says, the pack now has a solid confirmation that he is in fact the original Kenneth MacAlpin, making him centuries old and a convert from the Silverfang tribe to the Black Spiral Dancers. He is also the father of Winda MacAlpin, and he wants his daughter back, regardless of what she might have to say about it. And the next one says, Kenneth MacAlpin is known to have escaped Dublin only days before the shield came up that prevents supernatural creatures from entering or leaving the Dublin Tara area. And next up we have Eliza Masterson. It should be said before I begin this that Eliza was the young woman that the players encountered behind the desk at the cheesy, sleazy, horrible, wheezy motel in Finglas. Eliza is not an average Fomor by any means. She's been in the game long enough to know that she's an asset to the worm and to accrue a certain amount of power and influence. This is in part due to the fact that she maintains control over the bane that inhabits her body. This normally only happens when a Bane attempts to take over a Leech, but for some reason something went wrong when Eliza was subjected to possession. Now the Bane is along for the ride, but it has no control and it hates every second of it. Eliza, for her part, has made the most of her misfortune. The fact that she controls the Bane and not the other way around makes her an unknown player as far as the Garou are concerned. She's something unknown and therefore something particularly dangerous. The fact that Eliza seems to be the major domo for Clan MacAlpin only adds to the reasons to see her dead. And next I'm going to deal with the Order. And the PCs have only encountered members of the Order at one time. This was during the first prequel session, where two of these were briefly seen at Wolfton Square. And first we have not a person but a coat of arms. This is in fact a real coat of arms, if people should have an interest in something as esoteric as heraldry. And as you can see, it contains a mixture of the St. George Cross and the fleur-de-lis and a personal coat of arms in the center. The Order of Arnaud is a deeply mysterious organization which is a relative newcomer to Dublin. The Garou know very little of this group except to be very, very careful around them. The Order, as they are commonly known, are hunters, and far more extreme than even the remnants of the Inquisition, otherwise known as the Society of Leopold. They have no inherent preferences when it comes to who they hunt. Vampires, werewolves, fae, mages, ghosts, anything and everything supernatural falls before the Order. They are far more extreme than the more commonly occurring Society of Leopold, and they operate under the dictum of Arnaud Amalric, a Cistercian abbot who, during the sacking of Béziers during the Albigensian Crusade, intended to wipe out the Cathar faith, instructed a Catholic soldier who was concerned about killing fellow Catholics during the ensuing ruination of the conquered city, Caedite eos novit enim dominus qui sunt es eius. Literally, kill them. The Lord knows those who are his. By all accounts, it is small in terms of numbers of actual members, but the complete lack of inhibitions they display make them incredibly dangerous. The Order is perfectly willing to destroy a kindergarten full of innocent children if it means destroying a single vampire in the process. The way they see it, they are already damned. They are fighting to save the world from a greater evil. They do not talk if taken alive. They are immune to a number of supernatural abilities, including all forms of mind control or mind influencing abilities known, and they are highly resistant to the rest. While they hunt the supernatural, there is little doubt that they themselves employ it. Should be added as an addendum that this is also the reason why the Order consider themselves damned. They use the supernatural to hunt the supernatural, and they have damned themselves as a result, but it's for the greater good, if you ask them. First, we have Njol. Njol is a member of the Order of Anno, and he is the only member in Dublin of whom a little is known by the Garou. He is known to have been born in Galway, though exactly when is uncertain. He is the only member of the Order in Dublin who has been seen to slay a supernatural being when he burnt a vampire without the use of visible flame or a weapon. This was seen by Theodora, who had been hunting the leech in question. The vampire in question was young and known to be from Galway, and he seemed to recognize Njol before dying. Why Njol's face is made to look like a rictus is anyone's guess. No one knows why the Order adorn themselves in this way, especially since it makes them fairly easy to notice, but regardless, it seems to be a common theme for them. I should add here as an addendum that he is no longer the only person seen to have killed a supernatural being, but we'll get to that later. Next up is Maine. Maine is a recent convert to the Order, and she's got all the zeal of a recent recruit. She's particularly dangerous because she seems to know a lot of the Cithane, or at least she knows of them and how to find them. She's already killed 2 of their number, both of them with iron knives. The Cithane are outraged and very worried. Next up is Aoife. Aoife is a member of the Order of Anno, or more commonly simply the Order, and apparently the twin sister of Mary. Her face is made to look up like a stylized rictus, a trait common to all field members of the Order. Little is known by the Garou of Dublin about this process, since very little is known about the Order in general. Aoife is believed to be Irish by birth, or it may simply be a cover name. It is literally the Irish equivalent of Eve. Her exact abilities remain largely unknown. And next up is Mary. Mary is a member of the Order and apparently the twin sister of Aoife. Like all members of the Order, her face is made up to look like a stylized rictus, though the exact effects are unknown. Very little is known of her, except that she may be Irish, her name suggested, being the Irish equivalent of Mary, but it may simply be a cover. Her abilities, insofar as she has any, are still unknown to the Garou. I wish to add here, before I go on to the next one, that Aoife and Mary were the 2 members of the Order that were spotted by the Garou at Wolfton Square. Next up is Amma. Amma is a member of the Order. His exact abilities are still unknown to the Garou, and almost nothing is known of him. His name means warlike in Irish, and he has been heard to speak that language in a soft voice on a couple of occasions, so it is commonly believed that he is in fact Irish. Little else is known, however. His face, like the members of the Order in general, is made to look like a stylized rictus. What this means or what it does is as yet unknown. And finally, we have Baptiste. French, freaky, fucking dangerous. Baptiste has flown under the radar until very recently. Then he was spotted exercising several of the unquiet dead, and no one has seen or heard from those particular ghosts since. Only one other supernatural creature has gotten near him, as far as the Garou are aware at least, but it was an impressive showing. He was literally spotted setting fire to Jack Roach, one of the most hated leeches in the city. Jack was reduced to a small, smouldering slack heap, and Baptiste walked away, adjusting his suit slightly. Incidentally, Baptiste didn't use any noticeable weapons. And at this point, I'm going to stop this recording. There will be more of these posts about the NPCs involved in the campaign, and I can only urge you to go and listen to them. If you wish to leave a comment in the area below, feel free to do so, but as usual, I will ask you to be kind about it. This is all still very new to me, and, well, apart from the 13 recorded episodes as of this moment, I think it's very new to most of us in this group.